All right, so welcome everyone back to the Executive Spotlight. We're here with Jeff Mateja. So Jeff, tell people who you are and where you're from.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm 15 years in the business, all with Keller Williams Realty from day one. We're located in Scarborough, Maine, where I have a mega agent office, just 5 minutes south of Portland, Maine, where the market center is, here at the beach. Our office is about 2.5 miles from the ocean. Very big second home market, as well as, just a commuter. We're about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes from Boston.
Right on, right on. And so how long have you been selling real estate?
This is 15 years. It was 15 years in February. So
Okay.
I guess 15 and a half years.
Right on. Now, the title of this is 91 listings in 86 days. Which,
it sure is. Yeah. This is the second time.
You're still standing. You should be taking a nap.
Right. Yeah. Well, you caught me doing golden letters there a moment ago. This is the second time we've done it. I have to hand that to one of my colleagues that did 47 of those 91 in 86 days. And we want to pat ourselves on the back because the 91, the 86 days was calendar days, and we actually didn't work nights and weekends. So it really was about 70-ish days, 66, 70.
All right, and we'll go into nitty gritty on exactly how you guys did that, right? But predominantly, where does your business come from?
Yeah, it's predominantly our Sphere, agent referrals, and expireds on the listing side. Okay,
so you got your Sphere, you got agent referrals, and you've got expireds. That's where the majority of the listings are coming from.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. And then, the 91 listings in 86 days, how much above and beyond, your normal, listings taken was that?
Yeah, it was probably, in that 30 to 40% greater than normal. We stayed consistent and didn't go into that kind of roller coaster ride that's common. You go and get 30, 40 listings in a month, and then the next month you only take 15 because you're spending so much time servicing.
Yeah.
Prior, we just pushed through for that 12 weeks.
Yeah. Now we'll get into the how of it in a minute, but you've got an interesting background.
I do. Yeah.
Right. You're sharing with me earlier, like, what was your background prior to coming into real estate? It's a very exciting one.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I got to travel the world. I was an internal auditor for IBM, International Business Machines, out of Armonk, New York, and traveled the world. It's not internal audit, as you say, thinking of like tax accounting. It was process auditing, looking more towards like avoiding fraud, waste, mismanagement. So we would, I basically sit down kind of like you're doing and say, well, tell me what you're supposed to do every day. And then go back and, the next week could say, well, now, Aaron, show me how you do it, to make sure that they were doing what they told me they're supposed to do, what management expected of them. And that was there any inefficiencies? Were there some areas that we could button up so that, people weren't stealing from the company or, mismanaging time and energy?
Yeah. So with your background as a process auditor, right? Bringing that to real estate, and we were talking about how you actually brought that to conversion, right? Which then led to the ability to take 91 listings in 86 days. Like, walk us through, like, from start to finish, what that looked like.
Yeah. So, it's actually, it's kind of boring to peel back the onion. But in my world, I love it. I would look at each aspect of, starting early on, it would be, how did I create my listing presentation? Now we're getting a little more sophisticated, but still very, very back to basics. And it's all about the presentation. Well, pre-qualifying the seller, the presentation, and pricing. So I looked at conversion as, well, I can go and get the appointments. Well, how many appointments do we need to get to this 90 listings signed in 90 days? And so I dialed back each piece and said, well, how many appointments do we need to go on? And at what point, where do we need to be converting and signing these listings? And then once they're signed, how many need to sell? And we basically just took that, listings needed chart from Bolds and backed into a number. And I always carry that with me. Took just one step at a time.
So what you looked at was, of course, the ratios from listing appointments to listings taken to pendings, and then of course, ultimately to closing, right?
Correct.
Right. And so before I go further on that, what are your ratios from listing appointment to listing taken to pending, pending to closing? What are your ratios?
Yeah. I really focused on the big two. It was signed listings from appointment, where the team's averaging anywhere from 60 to 65%. On a really great month, it's 65. And then we close 74 to 77% of those listings signed.
Right on. So from appointment to taken, you guys are closing about 65%, right? You're getting
Correct.
signed. And then
Yep.
of those that you get signed, ultimately you're closing 74 to 77% of those.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Now, again, with your process auditor hat on, you know, you went and you attacked like each step of those 4 categories, right?
I did.
And so if we started with listing appointments, you know, where did you see the inefficiencies there, and what exactly did you kind of, you know, attack on listing appointments?
Right. So I looked at everybody who had appointments, and I just made just a basic chart, real basic, and said, okay, well, if I go on this many appointments and I'm converting at this level, where do I see there are gaps that others aren't converting at the level that I'm able to? Because, you know, thinking, hey, I want to hand over the reins, or maybe someone could become better than I am, and that has happened. And so I looked at, okay, well, are we not pre-qualifying? So we have, every time someone goes on a listing appointment, my executive assistant has what's called a listing appointment debrief email, goes out through Boomerang. It says, you know, listing agent, did you get the listing or not? Yes, here's the details. It saves us many, you know, hours of heartache of just asking. But then, no, you didn't get it. Well, why? What do you think was the reason? And so we were able to dial back on, oh, they just weren't ready. Well, right. Could you then correct that with, well, let's pre-qualify better? Could you have asked a few more questions in the initial interview with the clients go on that appointment?
Yeah, so what you're doing is after each appointment, you send out the debrief email, right? Which was obviously, you know, very detailed, and kind of took them down. If they got it, great. If they didn't, you know, and what you learned from that was there may have been questions that weren't being asked ahead of the appointment on the pre-qual that if we had asked or asked differently, we would have had a different result, correct?
Exactly. And then it was also another level of accountability that an agent would think, geez, I've got to answer to that listing appointment debrief email.
Yeah.
I don't want to have that email again. I'm going to ask better questions and have better phone calls. I'm going to set better listing appointments, and I'm going to sign them.
So what were some of the things, some of the gaps on that pre-qual, right, that you learned from the debrief that they weren't doing? Like, what were they not doing in that pre-qual stage that you got to go back and implement?
You know, agents were very excited to just go on an appointment and say that they could get that appointment number up. And then when they would, you know, further into the 90 and 90, you know, you start to see that correction of, well, they went on better appointments. They just weren't asking well, are you ready to sign paperwork now? If I could get you that price, or, you know, are you ready to go? And they'd get to a house and find out, well, it still needed work, or, well, I still need to find a home, and the people weren't really committed yet.
So really what I hear you saying is the key question on the pre-qual was making sure they were asking, hey, when I come out and see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock, right? If what I say makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident we can get your home sold, are you going to be ready to list the home with us when we see you tomorrow at 2? Exactly.
Yeah. And then, you know, if you got not quite right. Well, what would make you ready? Well, and then you'd find out I need, you know, I've still got to paint, I've got to clean. I needed a place to go. That was a pretty common theme in the last, you know, 60 to 90 days. I don't have a place to live.
Yeah. But really that closing question was the big one. And then what about on the pre-qual? Because if you ask that question, you're going to find out what their other objections are. Like you said, we don't know where we're going to go. We still have to get the home ready, right? What about the fact that, hey, we're interviewing other agents? Did that come up a lot also on the pre-qual?
It wasn't very common. No, that was, you know, we would get that when we got to the house. We didn't want to try to, you know, entice them to encourage other people to be interviewed. We just assumed we were going to get the appointment. And I tell my agents that, right? The statistic is 70% of people only interview one agent, get to their house. Just make sure that when you get to their house that they're ready, so you're not wasting your time.
Got it. All right. So on the listing appointment to listing taken, that was the thing we were doing. We were sending out the debrief email, right? We were finding out that they just weren't qualifying hard enough. It was the closing question that was the key there that started leading to better appointments, which of course leads to better conversion. What now, picking apart the actual listing appointment, right? The listing taken part, like what did you learn from picking that apart?
Yeah. So their presentation, we found that not everybody was presenting the same piece, or they were highlighting areas where they were most comfortable. So we went back to you need to watch my presentation. So we recorded a presentation that I gave, as well as folks that were a little newer to being on listing appointments would go on a listing appointment where I delivered it live. And they saw that in the delivery and the confidence in the standardization of this is what we'll do to get your home sold, Aaron, that people didn't come back and say, well, what about this or what about that? I answered all their questions because I'd given that presentation so many times that they felt super confident, and 7 out of 10 would sign the paperwork right then and there. They started to see, well, if I got really great at presenting my value proposition and what we're going to do for you, people said, well, yeah, where do I sign? Let's go.
Awesome. So in that listing appointment, you discovered it just wasn't a consistent appointment across the board with the agents going out.
Correct. Right? Correct. And we would, yep.
And so you had obviously you would take them with you to shadow, but you also had your appointment, in essence, videotape. And was that just a role play you did, in the office for training purposes that you then said, okay, watch this every day for 30 days or?
Yeah. I had a version of that. I also have a version where during COVID, I gave a few listing presentations live, and I was able to record it with their permission. So they did get, whether it was the awkwardness of a seller or the inquisitiveness of a seller, that they, got that real feel of, how it would happen.
Yeah. And did they have was there a certain protocol that they had to watch it a certain number of times or write it out or anything of that nature?
Yeah, we stuck to, my maps coach gave me the direction to have them watch it 2 days, the first week, 2 times, morning and evening, Monday through Friday. The next week, I believe it was watch it, then write it as you hear it. Third week was watch it Monday through Friday, then write it verbatim as you hear it, even after you have to pause the video. And then the fourth week was listen to it and then give the presentation, record yourself doing it 5 times that last week. And so, the people that stuck to that obviously convert at a much higher level. I'm sure it's a couple people maybe kind of skipped a day or two, and their course of action there's a little hurdle there.
Yeah. So because what was really interesting, and let me just go back through the whole method again, right? So over a 30-day time period, week 1 was they watch it twice a day, right?
Correct.
They watch it in the morning, they watch it in the afternoon. That was week 1. Week 2, they watch it and then they write it as they hear it, right? So they watch it and then they're just writing as quickly as they can. And then week 3 was they watch it and then they write it verbatim, right?
Yeah.
So not as they hear it, but they actually stop and they write it sentence for sentence verbatim, right? And then week 4 was that they watch it or listen, and then they give it each day. So 5 times a day, right? Because your listing taken ratio, when you guys started implementing that, went up by how much percentage points?
Yeah, we've increased our listings taken. I think it's 32%. Yeah, it's pretty unreal.
Yeah. So if you hear that, if you want to increase your listing taken ratio by 32%, that's the formula for the agents on the team to follow to get it down.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've already gone on 275 appointments this year. That's way ahead of last year. And now the sky's the limit. We know, every time a house gets listed, well, if we didn't list it, we had an opportunity to, we just, either didn't connect with that person or we haven't gone on that appointment. So there's opportunities still, and even in all these numbers, for us to grow.
Yeah, and we'll get there. Don't worry, process auditor. We'll get to those people here in a second.
Yeah.
But from a leadership standpoint, when you told your agents, hey, look, you know what, you're missing stuff on the appointment. Here's going to be your prescription, and which is a tough pill to swallow because that's time consuming for them, to watch it, to write it, to do all of that. Right? How did you, manage that? Did they have to turn something into you each day, or is it just like the honor system? Hey, I want you to do this, and we'll see it show up in the numbers.
Yeah, it was the honor system. You know, we saw it show up in the numbers. If it didn't show up in the numbers, then there would have been, you know, I didn't want to create too much extra work for myself. So I would have likely made it, hey, just text me to tell me that you did it.
Sure.
That was the next piece. Or just kind of, okay, well, you know, inspect what you expect. We would maybe say, right, what are you doing? What are you doing this afternoon? Oh, well, we're going to listen to it and then you're going to write it out.
Yeah.
That if it came to that, but I didn't, you know, I didn't have that situation.
All right. So then going back to now, you know, the flow from listing appointments to listings taken, then of course to pendings to solds. You said your listing taken ratio now overall is 65%, right?
Yes. Yep.
And obviously you've got agent referrals, you got expireds. I mean, you know, those aren't going to, of course, close at as high as your Sphere would, right?
Right.
So,
right.
but 65%. What's your system look like for those 35 who don't sign, and what's the follow-up look like there?
Yeah. Yep. So we have a spreadsheet tracker as well as in our CRM a follow-up system. So everybody is on a market report, you know, instantly from the moment that they've been on an appointment or an appointment was set to now get dripped regularly, you know, depending on when they said how motivated they are, we might change it up.
Yeah.
To get a report of what's going on in the market, what houses have sold. And then there's scheduled check-ins from the listing agent to see where they're at. Cards are sent
Awesome.
to make sure that they don't fall off. So we, you know, we do have a lot of nurtures, and even kind of baked into some of these numbers are appointments that are open-ended that, you know, they want us to come back at a later date because they're not ready.
Yeah. And so just like going back to kind of the big theme here, those 91 listings in 86 days, right? It just goes back to the fact that you went through and you broke it down step by step, you know, and in essence, by increasing our listings taken by 32%, right? That's a lot of what got us to that goal of the 91 listings, correct?
Absolutely. And it was small, you know, small tweaks. It wasn't revolutionizing, you know, our process, rewriting the playbook here.
Yeah, no, it's just taking what you knew as a process auditor to, like you said, slow it down, right?
Sure.
And go frame by frame in essence what you did, and just figure out, okay, what's the gap? What can we do to correct it? And there was no magic in it other than slowing down the process and just seeing what the gap was.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right. Because like you said, to get those 91 listings, you didn't work nights and weekends. It wasn't the old, you know, oh, I'm going to go kill myself for 90 days. It was improve our processes and conversion and let's see what happens.
Exactly. It was the work smarter, not harder. And we outlined that from day one, how we would do it. And we could make, you know, adjustments, minor adjustments throughout. You know, if you saw after a week or two, something needed to change, we could see it ahead of time to make sure that by, you know, day 90, it was operating, you know, fully efficient.
Yeah. So what else, as you were looking at the process, right? We know what we did on the pre-qual with that closing question, right? We know what we did on the presentation now with really getting them indoctrinated and you know, understanding the presentation at a high level, right? What else did you see in the process that you were able to tweak to improve conversion and all of that?
Yeah. So there was two key pieces. Was communication. We have we'd implemented what we call the pass the baton. It was a form that we would handwrite at the appointment or after the appointment to give our administrative personnel some highlights on, you know, they go, you know, John goes by the nickname Jack, for instance, and you know, you'd look kind of crazy if you called him John on the phone when, you know, the listing agent just knew his name was Jack. So stuff like that. And then, you know, hey, there's pets at home, kids. So it felt comfortable for the administrative side to make those phone calls to take a little bit off the plate. And then we saw, well, right, that form, you know, you're rushing to get paperwork. There we go.
Now, I don't know what yours look like. This is one that Monica and Reynolds and I had created when we were working together on the team.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same idea. So then that made it easier. Well, then we saw maybe some folks on the team are not as great at filling this out. So our admins were chasing it. So then we implemented it where it was part of that listing debrief email. So it'd actually be a jot form. So you could do it all from your phone. And our agents that really, you know, kind of love the text message or the, you know, text side of it could fly right through it. And we saw that more of those got turned in, and essentially we could then better communicate with the client.
Yeah, because there's nothing that the client gets more frustrated by than having to then tell your admin stuff they already told the listing agent, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And then
or it's like, hey, congratulations on selling your home, and they're like, I'm getting divorced, and you're like, oh, whoops. I guess, you know.
Yeah, Absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't such a happy sale.
All those things we've learned over the years. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that passed the baton, allowed you guys to be more efficient in the communication from listing agent now to listing management, and give a higher level of customer service as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. On the support side, right, they felt more comfortable. They could take stuff off of the listing agent's plate so they could go on more appointments.
Yeah.
And we would explain that, like the doctor's offices, that, everybody's taking notes so that, a nurse doctor comes in, they leave right off, hit the ground running right where they left off. And then everybody knows. And then the listing agent feels that much more comfortable that it's taken care of. And maybe they're even better with some of the, finer details on the listing, support side from an admin perspective.
Yeah. So I love it. All right. So pass the baton then was getting implemented after listing was taken, right? What else in that process did you guys identify as something that would help your efficiencies?
Yep. Yeah. So then we saw, it was more in the back end. Once we had the listing, we saw that some folks, right, maybe went on appointments, just want to get their appointment number up. Then others sign listings just to get their signed listings number up. Well, then you'd uncover, well, they're not having as many pendings and close. So it must be a pricing piece, or you didn't align with expectations that the client had. So we had to have that conversation with some folks to then say, right, well, were you asking, or like letting them know that they may need to reduce the price if they didn't have a certain number of showings, and we know all those scripts, but it was just getting to the front of that. Or did you just get it signed because you agreed to whatever their price was? Did you have that pricing discussion? It's part of our presentation. So were you skipping that as part of the presentation? Do we need to work on that? Or was it, oh, maybe we need a refresher on a CMA or tweaking a little bit, that the market's going to eventually slow up here. Let's prepare them for that part of the conversation.
So I've got a question then, from a leadership standpoint, right? These debriefs that were happening, of course, after the listing appointment, you were obviously reviewing that, or, down the road, you were looking at, hey, their listings aren't selling, and you were identifying, what conversations they weren't having around price reductions, et cetera. Yeah. How are you doing this, on a weekly basis with them in one-on-ones? Do you have a director of sales that does it? Like, how does that happen on your team? Because I know a lot of agents like, I don't have time to do that. Right? We're running hard and fast. How did you guys work that out?
Yeah. So the listing debrief happens immediately after the listing appointment. So that's automated. Then every Monday we have a listing rundown meeting at 11:30. That then leads into great, because we have a team meeting every other Wednesday. But the listing rundown would be, here's our coming soons, our actives, our pendings. Who needs a little extra love? Who needs that extra, handholds? Is an agent struggling with any of their listings? So we kept tabs on the person that took the most listings, almost had their own spreadsheet.
And you were doing that with your admin or with the agents as well, that rundown?
The listing agents are in that meeting, as well as it's a Zoom call. In addition to the listing coordinator and our transaction coordinator sit in on that. So they may have some more details.
Yeah. And how long is that meeting?
Half hour to an hour at tops, once a week.
So once a week, you're basically doing 30 minutes to an hour, deep dive onto listings at all stages. And that's how that's where you manage it all.
That's what it's a quick rundown if we need to have the MLS up in front of us so that everybody's on the same page. Otherwise it's, let's skip all the ones that are in good standing and we don't have to worry about. We have, like everybody, the difficult client or two, or an agent that may not be as attentive to their listings.
Yeah, and if you do have an agent who's struggling, are you addressing that, in front of the group, during that meeting, or will you do that,
No, I do. I do side one-on-ones with the agents as needed, to get them up. So what we did do is, as part of that listing debrief, that goes on a tracker, so everybody sees their conversion ratios in comparison to the average of the team and each individual agent. So it doesn't technically call everybody out, but it just says, right, geez, there's an opportunity.
There's public accountability.
Exactly.
And there's transparency on the numbers for everybody.
And people see what's possible too, that, we have an agent that converts at a little bit higher than the averages. They may sign only, 58, but they sell 95% of the listings they take. Yeah. And vice versa. That might be someone that just works Sphere. So they sign 100% of the listings they take and they sell 75% of the.
Got it. So, all right. So going back to the 91 listings in 86 days, and obviously the biggest part of that was, of course, breaking down the actual listing appointment, listing taken, those processes, right? And increasing those efficiencies. However, I have a feeling if we take it back to the lead gen part of it, you probably put your auditor hat on and saw some gaps there as well, correct?
I did. Yeah. I saw that, a number of folks kind of gave up on expireds when it seemed like every house was selling. And, so Vulcan, the Vulcan 7, account kind of wasn't getting used. So we saw a lot more people calling their Sphere agent referrals. We obviously had still have a solid run with golden letters. And we wanted to get back to, or don't forget what got us here, go back to calling expireds. Don't let up just because you think expireds went away or there's less of them. There's still houses expiring, and remember why those people decide to list with you. The other agents that couldn't get those sold. So we would still call new ones, yet we were also calling some of the old expireds to make sure that they were, realizing what activity we were getting and success relisting people's properties.
Yeah, and I'll just put our KW disclosure in here. If we are calling the expireds, of course we are TCPA compliant, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Good.
Right.
And so I know a lot of people are probably also sitting there saying, "Man, what does Jeff require of his agents?" I mean, if we're talking about expireds and of course database, right? What does that look like for you as a team? Are we all coming in together? Are we working, virtually? Like, how do you have that set up since you've got everything so dialed in?
Right. Yeah. I mean, everybody has the opportunity and the tools given to them are here at the office. Everybody has a desk space if they'd like. Yes, some choose to work from home and work remotely a number of days a week. There's still a level of accountability and a check-in. And if we were to see numbers dip a little bit, that's when there's a check-in. So because we're so in tune with what people are up to, we not much time goes by before it's hey, Aaron, is everything okay? Is there anything that you need from us? Let's go back to their successes and remind them what got them to this spot. Do we need to go back into that area? But we do provide all those tools. We have, calls coming in, leads coming in.
And so from a metric standpoint, right, do you expect a certain number of contacts made each day, time lead generated or appointment set? Like, how do you manage that for those agents?
We make the suggestion, kind of that standard 2 to 3 hours, 5 days a week. It's not a requirement. It's not what keeps you on the team. It's more, where are you attaining? Are you hitting your goals? Are you doing, are you listening and being a team player and being, participating, showing up, being in the audience at the team meeting and being available to help the team out. As long as, you're doing what, helps you get to your goal, we're okay with that.
Okay, got it. Now, obviously you've got a process auditing background, right? You clearly did a great job on the listing side to increase the conversion to ultimately, hit an amazing listing goal in a short amount of time. Where are you now focused next? Like, right? I mean, you did a great job here. You identified, the gaps. Now, where are you going?
Yeah. Well, it's to really fine tune this so that, at some point in time, right, I want to be able to step out or step to the side and allow multiple people to take over, or have someone, take this listing division to another level that probably is much greater than I could ever take it to, and then expand into other areas. So, we are only about an hour from the New Hampshire border. So we do have some folks that are starting to take listings in New Hampshire. We're based in Maine, and it's to see if we obviously should be able to replicate our success and our conversion. And it's just finding those who that can take our system to the next level and really accentuate what we've been able to do. And then find people even in our backyard that, again, could replace my level of conversion, could be maybe above the team average to take it to another level and, continue to list at a high level.
Because for the team right now, how many agents do you have and how many of them are listing focused?
So believe it or not, there is only myself and one other agent that are strictly listing focused.
Okay.
We do have, there's 23, 25 licensed agents. Admin are also licensed, and and everybody else does work with buyers and sellers. And there's about eight full-time agents who are, but also working buyers and sellers. And the
Yeah.
buyer market's been pretty wild. So they're writing multiple offers and kind of working with that same buyer on, maybe
Okay.
10 different properties and starting to get that itch to say, I should probably be listing houses, right? Might have more fun at home,
Right.
and be able to get those nights and weekends back.
Right. So besides yourself, you do have one other agent who's fully dedicated on listings, and then you have about 8 who do both.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Who have to answer to the debrief on the listing appointments.
Absolutely.
And so I'm assuming, do you have a director of sales, who manages those agents, or what does that look like?
So my director of operations / listing coordinator wears a few hats and oversees that. And then I have a director of growth who manages and kind of is that director of sales, watches over and sees and trains up new agents. Also does a mastermind for agents that are in production to, just get them to a higher conversion, better success, and, take it to the next level where they'd like to go.
Yeah. Now, and going back to your conversion systems, is there anything that we haven't touched on, or any questions I haven't asked around, what you've done or what you're continuing to do to improve conversion?
I think no. I think you've asked quite a lot.
Yeah.
Nothing comes to mind other than just talked about like that growth piece. Is how are we finding other agents? And the biggest piece has been actually from our sphere is talking to past clients and their interactions, and that's actually uncovered a number. There's 3 agents on the team that are past clients of ours.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, recruiting's a whole nother conversation.
Right. Yeah.
From this though, here's my biggest takeaway, right? The biggest takeaway just with your background and what you did was, like I said earlier, you just slowed down the whole process, right?
Absolutely.
And
right.
you actually took time to debrief, right? Hey, what happened on those appointments? Okay, well, hey, we realized that we're not asking the right questions on the pre-qual. Let's implement those questions, right? So we have better appointments. And then, what you found on the appointments is that they weren't consistent. Great, let's implement the protocol to learn the presentation so we now have better appointments, right? Just those 2 things right there increased you by 32%, which then allow us to go hit an awesome listing goal without killing ourselves over a 90-day time period.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it right there. It wasn't overly complicated other than slow it down and make sure we're asking the right questions at each step of the way.
Yeah, be okay taking what you might feel as a step backward. I know that we're all like, high D's driven to just let's go get more. The market's, moving very quickly. To take a step back, even to spend a week just kind of fine tuning and sharpening the saw and getting better will leaps and bounds, rubber bands stretches back and shoots you forward, twice as far as you expected to go previously.
No, I love it. I think this is hugely valuable. And I think you'll agree that we were very efficient in this interview, correct?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. So much so that I think we covered everything and can't think of anything else.
I'm just teasing with you, but no, right on. Hey, I appreciate you for sharing this, right? I think this is awesome. And there's so many teams that we work with that it's like, hey, let's not overcomplicate it. Slow it down, ask the right questions, right? Do the right protocol. We will see, we already have the leads, right? So it's not a lead issue. Let's just convert better and we'll be in great shape, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're 100%.
All right, man. I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for being on
here.
here.
Aaron. Take care. Thank you so much.
See you, Jeff.
Bye.